Happy to be joined here by head coach Vic Fangio at the 2020 NFL Scouting Combine. Coach, you have been a fixture here at the Combine over the past 3 decades. How have you seen this event evolve?
Well, one way is right here in this room we're sitting at. This is where they now do the weightlifting, and they've made it to where it's like studio quality so they could show it on TV, where it used to be in another small room and guys would just come on in and watch it if they wanted to. So it's become much more of a TV production show than just information gathering for the NFL team. So that obviously is the biggest change. And you know, years ago it was mainly done for the physical, for the players to go through a physical, and then it added, well, let's work them out while we're here, let's interview them while we're here. And now they're trying to make it a TV show. So,
well, it's a one-stop shop.
Yeah.
It really is. Well, over the past 3 decades, your main role was assessing defensive players. But now this is going to be year 2 of you assessing players on both sides of the ball. What has been the best part about that added responsibility, and what are some of the challenges?
I think it does help with the evaluation prospect that a guy who looks at most things through a defensive lens can add that perspective to the offensive coaches and the scouts when they're evaluating players. You know, I don't get as technical with offensive players as I may with defensive players, but I also think that's an advantage in that somebody is looking through a broad scope without a technical lens on and can say, I don't think that guy's very good. I wouldn't worry about him, you know, if I was coaching against him. So without getting through a bunch of technical stuff. And so I do think it adds a nice little element to the evaluation of offensive players.
Well, we know John Elway and the scouting department is here in full force, but when it comes to Broncos coaches, you are flying solo this year. What were some of the factors that played into your decision to leave your staff back in Denver?
Well, I've always thought many years that I was coming here, and I've suggested this to a couple GMs in my past, most recently in Chicago, that I just thought the days were too chopped up here. It wasn't conducive to getting a lot of work done, and I just thought you could accomplish more staying back. So this week our coaches are staying back, and the entire week they're watching college players on tape. And I think we'll be farther ahead in that evaluation process because we're doing that. And I think the guys have a chance also to do a better job of evaluating players because they're watching them right next to each other, you know, one right after the other, rather than, you know, February 20th, you may have watched one guy, and then March 25th, you watch another, and it's kind of hard to compare them. So I think it's just better use of time. You know, yesterday, for example, I was here and I watched guys weigh in yesterday morning, and then I was part of an interview with 3 guys late at night. In between, nothing. You know, so there's a lot of dead time. And I just think it's a better use of our time.
Interview-wise, what are you looking for in guys who could be potential Broncos? Because they're not only representing this team on the field, they're representing them in the community as well.
Yeah, it's hard to get, you know, they've jacked it up to 18 minutes this year if you want. I just like to see the guys talk and what their personality is. Do I think they'd be coachable? Try and get a feel for their intelligence. But, you know, I'm not smart enough to come to all those conclusions in an 18-minute interview. So I just think you get from an interview where sometimes the guy's great, and most of the scouts, part of the scouts' jobs is to not only evaluate them as players, but to know what they are as individuals on and off the field. So a lot of times the scouts already tell you what a guy is. So, and that's part of their job as scouts. So, you know, you just try and get a feel for a kid, and if you don't have a good feel, like many times I'll write a note down, we need to dig more on this guy.
Interesting. This wide receiver class is arguably the deepest ever, but you've said it's really 6 to 8 guys who are close. So when you're evaluating such high-level talent, how do you split hairs?
It's hard. You know, in our case, you know, we'll split those hairs by what John thinks, Matt thinks, what I think. what the area scout and Starkey think and what our position coach thinks and coordinator, and ultimately John will put all that together and he's got to make the decision. But it is hard, and because it's 31 flavors at Baskin-Robbins, but so everybody may put a little more importance on one part of a guy's job than others. Some guy may not like a receiver unless he's really fast. Other guys would be okay if he's not fast, if he can run good routes, side, so you got to just put it all in the pot there, and then John's got to decide.
Well, on the defensive side of the ball, you've said it before, when you're looking at DBs, you want guys with a high football IQ and you want great tacklers. We don't see tackling here at the Combine, but what can you see while you're here when evaluating those DBs that can help you kind of validate what you've seen on film?
Well, there are some minimums that play defensive back too, meaning you do have to run at least a certain speed to be able to play defensive back, because even though you may do a lot of things good, if you can't run fast enough to stay with an NFL receiver who's running deep down the field, then you're in trouble.
Can you put into perspective for Broncos country just how important this draft is for you and this entire Broncos staff, given how close this team is to just getting over that hump?
Well, I don't think it's just getting over a hump. It's whenever we can get over that hump, or per se hump, you want to stay there too.
Right.
So, we do have 11 or 12 picks, we think, once all the compensatories are given out. And we're not going to hit on all those picks, but we need to come out of this draft with a nice core of players that can be Broncos for a long time. And I think the more drafts you can stack up doing that, we had one last year. I think the Broncos had one in 18 also, maybe, got Cortland, and who else was in that draft? Oh, and Phillip is kind of in that draft. So the more drafts you can stack up where you're getting 4 or 5 guys at different spots, they don't have to be all Pro Bowl players, but they have to be solid players, and then you can sustain having good seasons.
All right, last but certainly not least, it is my first time at the Combine, first time in Indianapolis ever. What do I need to do while I'm here? You're a veteran.
Yeah. Well, you've already gone to St.
Elmo. I did the shrimp cocktail.
There's not a lot to do in Indianapolis now unless you're you're a fan of race car driving?
Huge fan of race car driving.
We'll go over to the Indianapolis the Speedway, and they have a museum over there.
Okay. It's on my bucket list. Coach,
Okay.
Thank you so much. I really
All right.
appreciate your time.
Thank you.